Good afternoon and welcome to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which is being conducted from the Chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. You will all be well versed on the conduct of the meeting, but I will remind you of the following. If you are a member of the committee attending remotely, please leave your camera on and your microphone off. Officers, please both off unless you are called to speak to a report or answer a question. A reminder to those members in the chamber of the queuing system. If you wish to ask a question, please leave your mic on in case you wish to come back on a response. Committee members will be given priority. In regard to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is being recorded. The recording will be made available on the Corners website following the meeting. The budget item is made up of three parts, items 2A to 2C, which will be taken in the sequence as they appear on the agenda and are detailed in the budget folder, which has been shared on SharePoint. The Chief Financial Officer will introduce these financial items. It is necessary to consider these together. Therefore, I would propose that the committee consider each report in turn and then come back to the recommendations of item 2A, which is the Budget and Council Tax 2024-25 report. I am ruling items 2A, 2B and 2C 1 to 3 as urgent. Item 1, which is declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare an interest they have in any items of the agenda. It would be helpful if members expressed why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Do we have any declarations? No, thank you. Item 2, Budget and Council Tax Setting 24-25. This is a joint report by Chief Executive and Chief Financial Officer. This report is at Section A of the budget folder and details the budget and council tax setting for 2024-25 and a forward strategy. And I'm assuming that the Chief Executive and the Financial Officer won't want to say anything at this point, seeing they said it already. That be correct? Okay, thank you. B, Draft Budget Book 2024-25, report by Chief Financial Officer. Item B, approval is sought of the draft budget book 2024-25 insofar as the committee is concerned. Please refer to pages 10 to 25 of the budget book. The Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Officer Assets and Infrastructure will answer any questions of detail. Do we have any questions? Anybody? Online? No, not seeing anybody. Okay, thank you very much. Item F, fees and charges 2024-25. Schedule of rates and dues at Comhairle Piers and Harbours 24-25. Report by Chief Officer Assets and Infrastructure. And the Chief Officer will answer any questions on detail. If any members have a question. I'm not seeing any, no. Okay, thank you. Second item, fees and charges for marine fuel 2024-25. And again, the Chief Officer, Assets and Infrastructure will answer any questions you may have. Not seeing any questions. Item 3, Municipal Services Fees and Charges 2024-25. It's a report by Head of Municipal Services, and Chief Officer again will answer any questions on detail if anybody has any questions. No questions. Okay, thank you. Insofar as the committee's interests are concerned, items 2C1, 2C2, 2C3 are for approval. Having considered these items, can we go back to the main report at item 2A? And I believe there is an amendment proposed by Councillor Crichton, seconded by Councillor Finlay. I'm Stewart. And if you want to read that amendment, Councillor Crichton. And I believe you have a preamble as well.
Maybe, right. Thank you, Chairman, for your consideration of this amendment, and grateful to Councillor Stewart for agreeing to second it. It's regarding the evening bus services for Broad Bay and the West Side. And I'm proposing an amendment which I will read out as follows. In relation to the savings proposed in respect to bus operations, the Cona agree A, to continue the Broad Bay and West Side evening bus services funded from Crown Estate funding, subject to the approval of the distribution of Crown Estate revenues for 2024, 25, 2025, 26, 2026, 27. B, that the Broad Bay and West Side evening bus services be considered as part of the next round of tendering for the school and public bus contracts as a distinct priced item. And C, the head of municipal services consults with passengers and operators to design a peak passenger evening service for Broad Bay and the West Side. And D, the head of municipal services continues to explore alternative funding sources for the provision of the evening bus services. And not to detain the committee further, but just to set the context that we have discussed this at committee before and at the budget seminar. I think we all know the importance of this service to the communities affected, and the prospect of them coming to an end at the end of March would have a devastating impact for those who depend on the services, especially those who work in the hospitality sector and in our local supermarkets. It would have would be a real threat to their continued employment prospects going forward. So I think the amendment makes the necessary savings identified in the revenue budget, and at the same time retains the evening bus services using the county state revenues. If the county state funding is about strengthening connectivity with our rural communities and providing access to sustainable employment opportunities, then this is an appropriate way to use it. I think it ticks all the boxes and will save the service until it can be considered as outlined in the amendment. It can be part of the wider tendering process for the main bus contract, and at the same time protect jobs of those who depend on that service. And it also brings an end to the ad hoc arrangement with a year-to-year arrangement for the contract, and it sets it on a more sustainable footing for the next number of years until we review the main bus contract. Thank you for your indulgence, Chairman. I hope that will provide some context and will receive the support of the committee. And
certainly does, Donald. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on that? Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points I'd like some clarification. I'll go back to my earlier point on the previous amendment about the Crown Estate again, that once it is determined that it would come out as a strategic fund and not the community element of whatever would be available to the community. The second point is more to do with the legality of the tender. Should we not be, and again, and maybe Mr. Burr or one of the legal colleagues might be able to enlighten us here, but should we not be putting this out to tender given that it's going to be, I've got nothing against the amendment, but till we get the full contract set up in 3 years' time, should we not be putting this out to tender meantime, given that it's quite a substantial sum of money? We're talking about nearly £500,000 here, and I don't think it's all our own operation. I think it's a private contractor as well involved here. So I would think there might be something here that we might need to consider. You know, yes, give monies till we get the tender process up and running, but I think I would be happy if we could build something into the amendment that we put it out to tender.
Donald.
The Chief Executive probably can come in on that legalities, but in terms of the use of the county state fund, it would be again from the strategic fund. I would assume that would come from, as we have agreed in terms of the creative industries item earlier. But in terms of the service, time is of the essence. The contract comes to an end at the end of March, and there will be no service after that. So we really need to move very swiftly and agree this so we can make sure this service continues. I'll pass on to Mr. Bird for the legal aspects of that.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of procedural points. While the intention is noted that that this funding and the funding for creative industries come from the strategic element of the Crown Estate Fund, members are advised that we have not yet decided and won't decide until the April series how to allocate the Crown Estate Fund. So these comments are noted, but it is for your decision in this chamber how to allocate the Crown Estate funding for next year, and we will take that decision in April following consideration at a seminar in March. So, but obviously members' intentions are fully noted and will be reflected in the report which members consider. On the procedural point about tendering, I'll be guided by Mr. MacLeod, but I haven't had a chance to look at the contracts, the relevant contracts. Obviously, we would seek to obtain best value as we would for any contract, but beyond that, I can't go without knowing the details of the contractual arrangements involved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Walter. David.
Thank you, Chair. The contracts for evening bus services have always been short-term because the nature of the funding, it's always been considered something that has been up for review. So it's the existing contracts were always on the basis of they were a tendered price, but with an option to extend on a year-on-year basis. So it was competitively tendered initially, but it has been running on a year-to-year extended for a further year, subject to funding being available before that decision could be made.
Okay, thank you, David. I'll let Angus back.
Yeah, it doesn't really answer the question I asked. You know, we've known that this was going to come up, and I get Councillor Crichton's point, we are running out of time, but we've known about this for long enough. It was coming before us just now. And again, I'm not against the evening bus service being continued. I want to make that point quite clear, but it's the best value aspect of it that I want to really come back on. To offer something on a year-on-year basis and give operators or an operator money to run that service on a year-to-year basis, I wouldn't say that is sound practice for best value. Because I know I was involved in the bus tender when they came up the last time, very strongly involved with it. When we gave the operators the opportunity to operate a design-led timetable and come in, and that's worked really well for us in our own area and throughout the spinal route, even providing an evening bus service for us. I'm really disappointed that we haven't thought that initiative through even our own service from bus to Comhairle, let alone any other operator, given that everyone had the same time frame to do something. But I would think that given that we've got an opportunity here, rather than put £500,000 or close to £500,000 out before the tenders come out, to actually try and get best value and put it out, given that we can, I'm happy for, if we have to, for a few months rolling over to pay out to keep the service running, but it would be good to know if we could get best value on a tender process.
Donald.
But this, Chairman, has been a rolling contract for a number of years now, and there's been no interest whatsoever been shown in this before. So I don't see what the problem is now. And as the Chief Executive assured us, best value principles will be applied in terms of this service being continuing. Until there was a view at the end of when the current main contract expires in 2027, that will all be reviewed and a new tender will be put out for competition.
Chief Executive, I think you were wanting. You've.
I was simply going to note, Chair, that to be fair to Mr. MacLeod and colleagues, these services were scheduled to be among next year's savings until very recently. So there's not been much time to look at contractual arrangements. But as I've said, we will ensure, as always, that best value is obtained. And of course, there is the additional recommendation that Mr. MacLeod will look at the level of the service and the provision of the service. Don't know if that will be able to produce many savings, has to be said, but that is part of the recommendation, and of course we will look at that too.
Did you want in, Gordon? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Chair. Thanks very much, and I agree that the evening bus services are very important. It's just a question when looking at the amendment that we got sent last night. How is it going to be funded prior to the approval of the distribution of the Crown Estate funding if the contract's ending on March the 31st? There's obviously a gap of I don't know when the formal meeting will be. Is it in May? So how is it going to be funded? Is that going to be deferred or?
I think it's funded up to the end of March anyway, David.
Yeah, just to clarify, I have spoken to the Chief Financial Officer about this. Any removal of a registered service requires a notice period of 10 weeks. So there was always going to be a period of time where we were in the notice period with the Traffic Commissioner. So that would take us roughly into the right period. So there won't be much in the way of difference between these two times.
Norman.
As Chair, I'm not a member of your committee. I fully support the amendment, not just because it affects my particular area on the west side as well, but I think we need to look at, when we're looking at the economics of situations, we don't know the price of everything and the value of nothing. You know, we have instances where we're looking at things like the Benbeckle Air service as well, and the value to the community of certain services. We need to watch what we're doing here when it comes to terms of Councillor Crichton's committee on my own sustainable development. When it comes to keeping people on the island, population retention and economic development, we're talking about keeping people and their access to their work. We have a burgeoning sector just now supporting the tourism industry, where people may be required to work awkward shifts, etc. within Stornoway and other areas. You know, I mean, this throughout the Western Isles, the communities that are supporting the tourist sector as well may not have the 9 to 5 what you would call social hours and require access to and from their work. And we also have a policy in this corner as well of supporting housing developments outside of Stornoway. I've been an advocate for all the money we do take in bus fares, etc., of making our bus travel free so that we can get people access to and from where they need to go, you know, till a reasonable time at night. And we need to be careful that we're not making this detrimental for them. If we're cutting bus services, we're trying to get people to move to rural areas and support that. And we're trying to get people to support an economy that is growing in some sectors. And if we're cutting bus services, we're certainly sending out the wrong message here about retaining population, getting people to and from work, and making folk who cannot afford their own transport and taxis, whatever, getting backwards and forwards, giving them some access to their place of work, you know, for a reasonable amount of time of the day between 7 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock at night. You know, so for the price of X, we will lose 2 times X possibly. So we need to be very careful about what we're doing when we're cutting bus services. We've already had a fantastic saving within the bus service over the last number of years, and I commend Mr. MacLeod for the work that's been done on bus services previously. But the bigger picture has to be seen as well, outside of the immediate economic effect of saving, I think it was £88,000 on this evening bus service. The wider effect within our communities of not providing buses after 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, and the knock-on effect, I think we need to take the whole picture into consideration when we're talking about bus services. And I worry that we're going too far down the route of, you know, getting rid of bus services because they're not economically viable. I don't think any of the routes we have are economically viable unless you take 1 or 2 in isolation. So, you know, we could easily pay our bus service and say, right, there's no more buses, or there's going to be X amount of buses because we're statutorily obliged to do so. But I think we need to be careful when we go with getting rid of bus services beyond 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Norman. Councillor McSween.
Committee. I just wanted to just confirm my support for Councillors Crichton and Stewart with their amendment and back up what Councillor MacDonald just said. It's basically about making sure that it's viable to live in rural communities in the Western Isles. If something like this was cut, it's less viable for people to stay in places like the West Side. And then that has the knock-on effect of forcing people to come over to in and around Stornoway, where we're already at capacity in terms of schools. There's lots of capacity in the schools in rural communities. And then we're going to end up spending more money trying to expand places in and around Stornoway. As Councillor MacDonald said, it's about the value of what is here already. So very much supportive of this amendment and I hope that the Chamber agrees to it.
Thank you. John Orman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do agree with very much with the amendment. Just a couple of things. What I'd like to see is, I'm guessing in the chambers today, the majority are definitely for not cutting the evening services. It's just to put the message out to the public users of the evening services that we will not be cutting it, just to make sure that they're aware of that. Put out the message. Suppose how it's funded, well, it'll get funded. It's going to be a go out for contract again, best value, etc., etc. Just basically put the message out so they don't have to worry that it's going to get cut. Thank you.
Thank you, John Orman. Does anybody else want to contribute? Well, the feeling I get from the Chamber is that most people are in support of this amendment. I don't know if anybody's proposing a change to it. Are we happy to accept then? Okay, thank you. To conclude the budget items and for the purpose of recording the minute with reference to items 2A, B and C, can I now confirm insofar as the committee's interests are concerned, approval of item A of the budget papers, budget and council tax setting 24-25. Are we happy with that? Okay, thank you everybody. The next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on the 24th April 2024. I think that's potentially in Barra. I don't know if we've agreed that, but we expect to be well entertained by Councillors McNeill and McLean when we go to Barra.